Thomas Edison was an American inventor and businessman. He is described as America's greatest inventor today. In 1879, Edison invented the light bulb. From there, this enabled Edison to be able to experiment with light. The first film was made in 1889 using light and a kinetograph. The kinetograph was the first motion picture camera invented just a year earlier by Thomas Edison. The camera captured around 30 images a second onto film using stop-and-go movement. These films could be viewed via a kinetoscope. This was another invention by Thomas Edison in 1891. It was an individual viewing device where a strip of film would be passed rapidly between a lens and a light bulb while the viewer watched through a peephole. The Lumiere brothers were French inventors and filmmakers. They were responsible for inventing the projector called the cinematograph in 1895. This allowed multiple people to watch a film at one time, unlike Edison's kinetograph, where only one person could watch at a time. Florence Lawrence was a Canadian stage performer and actress and became the first movie star in the 1890s. Her name was used to promote films, and IMP, the studio that she worked for, faked her death in order to gain publicity for their new leading actress. George Albert Smith created the tracking effect in 1899 by putting a camera on the front of a train. This film was called The Kiss in the Tunnel. People had never seen anything like this before and believed that they were actually moving towards objects on the screen in front of them. In 1900, at the Paris Exposition, widescreen cinema was introduced. On show was a series of silent films created by Georges Méliès, the person responsible for the jump cut technique in editing. This technique was developed after Georges' camera jammed whilst filming, giving the effect of people disappearing, appearing, or a change of scene. In 1904, Buster Keaton began experimenting with his filmmaking. He discovered double exposure editing and started using it in his films. This created the ghost effect and was the start of special effects within film. As well as this, he used different locations within his stories. This would create multiple different scenes within his films, making it more interesting for people to watch. He would use jump cuts and cross-cutting in order to help the story flow. Nickelodeons were the first type of indoor exhibition space dedicated to showing projected films in the US. The first Nickelodeon was set up by Harry Davis in a shop front in Pennsylvania on Smithfield Street and was just 5 cents for admission. In some Nickelodeons, up to 450 people could attend at one time. They became significantly popular from 1905 to 1915. Editing is the process of compiling multiple shots together to make a unit. If edited in the correct way, it can make the audience feel emotionally connected to the film and characters, as well as keeping them engaged within the story. There are several different styles of editing, which in turn can all achieve a different reaction from the audience. Fast-paced editing is normally used in highly dramatic moments, as the editor will want to exaggerate the tension and suspense in the story to make it more exciting and engaging for the audience. Slow-paced editing can be more emotionally impactful on the audience. However, this will depend on the genre of the film, as horrors or thrillers will use slow-paced editing to build tension before cutting to a more fast-paced editing style. Action movies such as James Bond and The Avengers will use quick-paced editing to make the movie more exciting and gripping for the audience. Quick-paced music will also add tension to the scene, as it engages more of the audience's senses while they watch the film. Horror films use fast and slow-paced editing. The slow-paced editing builds tension up until the fast-paced editing, which will add drama and a sense of urgency. This can create a jump scare for the audience. Music plays a big part in horror films. Slow-paced music is often used as it helps to build up tension and puts the audience on edge. Faster-paced music in horror films can shock the audience and add to the effect of a jump scare. In romance movies, a much slower pace of editing is used to set the tone and mood of the film, so it is more emotionally impactful on the audience, allowing them to empathise with the characters. The music used will help set the tone, such as a tear-jerking scene will use slower-paced music to emphasize this feeling. In-camera editing is when all the scenes are shot in order, so editing later on will be a much quicker process. Each clip will already be in the correct place, therefore it is just a matter of compiling them all together. Alfred Hitchcock uses in-camera editing in his film Rope, minimizing the amount of editing in the film. There are only 10 noted edits throughout the movie, consisting of only jump cuts and dissolves, giving the effect of the movie being shot in almost one take. Jean-Luc Godard's Breathless is another example of this, as he also uses in-camera editing, limiting the amount of noticeable edits to only a couple of jump cuts. Sergei Eisenstein was a Soviet film director who was responsible for pioneering the film montage technique. A montage is when a number of short shots are edited and condensed together into a short sequence to develop the storyline and show the passing of time. This technique is used by many film directors. In his animated movie Up, Pete Docter tells the story of a married couple's life together in just a short space of time using the montage technique. Catherine Hardwicke is another example, as she uses the montage technique in her film Twilight. She shows the struggle the main character faces over 6 months in just a few minutes by cutting together multiple short clips to make a montage. Edwin S. Porter and D.W. Griffith pioneered the editing technique cross-cutting. This allows the audience to follow along with the storyline much easier as they can watch from different views. Edwin S. Porter's 1903 film, The Life of an American Fireman, allows the audience to follow along the story of a burning house from the action taking place inside to the action outside of the house with the fireman. This is an example of shot variation, in which there are multiple types of shots in one scene, such as close-ups, long shots, low-angle shots, and high-angle shots. Analog editing is an older method of editing film. This is when the tape is physically cut using a splicer and taped back together in the correct place until the film is complete. This process can be very tasking, as you have to be sure that you're cutting the tape in the correct place. If not, it can affect the flow and continuity of the film, making it more difficult for the audience to follow along. As a result of this method takes up a lot of time compared to more modern methods used today. Digital editing is a more modern form of editing, as technology is used in order to cut together multiple shots. This can be a much quicker and easier process compared to analog editing. The editor is able to go back on what they have changed, and the original clips won't have been affected. Some examples of digital editing are Premiere Pro and iMovie. This software is easy to understand and use and can also be easily accessible. The results of using editing software can be highly rewarding. Seamless editing is the arrangement of shots to show progression in the story. With this technique, shots can be arranged differently in order to create different scenarios. The 180-degree rule ensures that the characters in the scene have the same left-right relationship at all times, in order to make sure that the following along isn't made difficult for the audience and to keep them from getting disorientated. A cut is an abrupt transition either from scene to scene or between shots within the scene. They are also used to edit out certain parts of the clip that are unwanted. Dissolves are soft and gradual transitions between shots. They usually indicate a passing of time between two scenes. Fades are when the image shown dissolves into a black or white screen, often indicating the end of a major story segment. A wipe transition is when one shot is replaced by another by moving from one side of the frame to the other. They are often used to indicate two events taking place at the same time. Point of view shots give a realistic view on what's happening by showing the events as if the audience are the characters in the scene. Shot reverse shot is mainly used during a conversation between two characters. It allows the audience to see the reaction of characters to the previous shot. Editing creates a timeline for the audience to follow and provides them with information as well as withholding it. This technique is used in Silence of the Lambs. Cutting to the beat is when each shot changes in time with the beat of the audio. Baby Driver is an example of this, as the excitement of the car chase is built by the fast-paced editing to the beats in the song.